Chairman Kinski, we're ready.
I'll call the meeting to order. This is the Joint Appropriations Committee on Tuesday, January 19, Thursday. Oh, wow. We're better off than I thought. The 19th, 2023. And the matter we have before us is review of the budget bill, the general appropriations bill for the state of Wyoming. We all approved it in concept, and now we're just going to do some technical amendments to make sure that we're all on the same page. And with that, Mr. Co-Chair, anything?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, Don? Okay, I always forget that part. Roll call.
Good morning, members of the committee. Representative Henderson. Representative Larson. Here. Representative Sherwood. Representative Stith. Representative Walters.
Here.
Representative Dave Zwanitzer.
Here.
Senator Anderson.
Here.
Senator Guru. Here. Senator Nethercott. Senator Salazar. Co-Chairman Nicholas.
Here.
Chairman Kinski.
Here.
Mr.
Just
Chairman.
so you know that the inability to remember roll call is not of recent vintage. I did it for 20 years in the city council meetings. All right, Don, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We will do a rather expedited walkthrough, but we do want to, this really is for us as much as it is for you to ensure that we captured your conceptual intent last Friday for the round robin on the supplemental budget bill. On a couple of these, I will note our conforming amendments, but then if they're very minor, I will start to skip over those. On page 1, line 10, we added providing for carryover funds beyond the fiscal biennium. That was a conforming amendment. On page 4, line 18, the Department of Family Services has been added to this supplemental budget. It previously was not, so you'll see 049 on line 18. Those are the kind of conforming amendments which I will start to skip over.
Okay.
The first substantive amendment appears on page 15, line 7 and 8. The committee added $350,000 and footnote number 3, which appears on page 17 for the Wyoming Capitol building to be open to the public on Saturdays and Sundays for normal business hours throughout the year, except recognized holidays.
Anything?
Where is that on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I will mention both of these documents before you. We have a summary sheet as well as the draft bill. I would just caution, these are literally only good for an hour. Once you approve them, we will actually make this into a formal bill draft. When you make it into, or excuse me, a numbered bill. When that occurs, you can see right at the top of the page 1, that section that says draft only for not approved for introduction. Well, that changes the page and page numbering throughout the bill. So I would be cautious about making too many notes on this.
So Don, then the reference to keeping the Capitol open on page 15 is the footnote on line 7 after general services, which then refers to footnote 3 on page 17, beginning of line 1.
That is correct. And
Okay.
if you're following along on the summary page, that is on page 2 to Co-Chairman Nicholas's point. And I believe it's note number 9. We have highlighted in yellow all of the notes from the round robin. So the yellow designates a round robin change.
It was and remind me. Yeah. So remind me, Don, on the SR, which stands for,
Summary report.
you have a series of, yeah, we're all becoming more correct these days. The footnotes on SR don't correspond to the bill, but not every footnote says per footnote number 3. 9 says per footnote number 3 in the budget. The ones that do not reference a footnote in the budget, that's because why?
Mr. Chairman, excellent question. It's because there is no footnote associated with that action. So for example, if you denied the governor's rec, you won't have a footnote in the bill. Or if you simply approved a governor's rec that didn't require narrative, you just said, he asked for $50,000 for travel or something, and you said yes, and it didn't necessitate a footnote, then it won't have a reference to a footnote.
So to hearken back to what you told us, if it was something in the governor's budget and we approved it, we assume that everything that he gave us informs this budget. So if he said, I need $50,000 for travel, it just goes into his budget as 50, and we know that it's to go to travel, correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I would add one caveat to that. And you said, we assume that there's actually a statute, I don't have the reference in mind, in Title 28. And maybe one of my colleagues can look that up, that actually references or directs all agencies for the interpretation of their budget to reference all materials submitted to JAC by the governor. So it's more than just an assumption. There is statutory language behind that.
Okay. No, he's nodding his head. Up and down his nod, that's shake.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yes, there is a statute that conforms to the governor's language for the approval of the budget items. So when we review those items for implementation, they have to follow the governor's recommendations.
And I'm glad, Mr. Co-Chair, you urged caution in slowing down, because the next time we see this spreadsheet and this bill, we'll be presenting it on the floor. Okay.
Well, typically what we do is like Sunday before we go through and practice a presentation. It's just, and so everyone listens to it. And
You stand in front of a mirror.
no,
Watch yourself give the
stand
speech.
all down.
Okay.
Make sure I'm doing it.
Please.
Along that note, for the new folks that wonder, some of us historically have prepared we have our own personal presentations and the format and how you do that. So you might just reach out to some of us that have done that before and just get a flavor. It doesn't mean you have to do it exactly the same, but it's kind of it really helps you when you're doing it on the floor.
So, and just out of curiosity, Mr. Co-Chair, I presume the House does it like the Senate, which is the chairman gives an overview and then each member who is assigned to a particular agency does the walkthrough on that agency. Okay.
Each person kind of does it different. Particularly for folks that are new, they write theirs out. And if you're sharing agency with some of these guys, you might collaborate. So because the work might be half done already, and you can share and work through those presentations together. We've done it before. It makes it a little easier.
Okay. Anything, members? All right, Don, thank you. Happens then, if a bill passes that so substantially raises the income and asset test on that property refund that the 5 million is not sufficient, and that passes, it just modifies this budget to that degree.
Mr. Chairman, if that bill included an appropriation, this appropriation would be reduced. If that bill did not include an appropriation, arguably the Department of Revenue would make a determination as to whether or not the new bill is substantially similar. If they deemed it was, then they could apply this $5 million for purposes of funding that new or modified program with a higher asset test.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change appears in the Department of Environmental Quality. It's page 26 of the bill. And in this case, there are 2 substantive changes and some conforming amendments. On line 4, page 26, on the administration line, you added $360,000 during your meeting on Friday. However, I emailed you all, and that $360,000 was based on a biennial number. That would be a rather nice salary. So I notified all of you and indicated that was a 2-year number. The maker of the motion agreed it was, so did the director of the department, and we have reduced that to 180,000, not 360, and that appears on line 5. That's correct, is the footnote associated with that. The next change you made appears on lines 6 and 7 of page 26, and the associated footnote on page 27, lines 8 through 14. You added $1.5 million to ensure that the reviews of air quality permits for industrial projects are completed in a timely manner. The issue on this one, no changes, but this is really a 3-year appropriation. And that's specified on lines 13 and 14 in that it does not revert until 2026.
And so, and exactly, I'd like to confirm that the summary sheet for Department 20 mentions that it's a 3-year appropriation. So let's.
Sure.
That'd be footnote 3 on page 5.
Yes, and that appears on note 3, and it does not mention the timeline. So we will add that in the final copy for a 3-year. The next substantive change appears on page 38 of the bill. Oh, I skipped over to 24, excuse me. The next appears on page 30 of the bill and page 6 of the summary sheet. On line 7, you will see that you added a total of $6 million to be deposited in the Cultural Trust Fund. It was 4 million, and I believe you added 2 million during the round robin for a total of 6. That $6 million is also reflected in the bill on page 32, footnote 6. You can see the struck language is 2.5 million, the new language is 8.5 million, and the difference there reflects the $6 million increase. If you're looking at the SR, that would be note 1.
I see that on page 6, but I don't see it on page 32. It's that line 14 to 16.
Yes.
That's correct. Don, is if you look at footnote 6 on 32, it shows the general fund appropriation of 2.5 million. The 8.5 reflects our infusion of 6 million in the standard budget request.
That's correct.
Down on page 6, section 24, state parks, I show in red 2 million of general fund, not 8.5.
Mr. Chairman, that is a reduction from the governor's rec. So the governor recommended 8, you approved 6. So if you compare it to the governor, it is a $2 million reduction. If you compare it to how much new money did they get, it's a $6 million increase.
That's why it's red and green.
And so where is the governor's rec of more money of 10? Is that buried into column 1, the 18 million?
That's correct.
It's pretty important to be able to follow both.
Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change appears on page 38 of the budget bill, page 9 of the summary report. I think there are 3 substantive changes. There are a number of other highlighted changes, but they are all conforming because all of the footnote numbering had to change. The first substantive change appears on page 38, line 13. And there is a reference to footnote number 13 in the bill. And the substantive change appears in footnote 13, which is on page 45 of the bill, specifically lines 19 and 20. And the addition of the language, which is hereby created if not created in any other law enacted in the 2023 general session. That's a little bit different than our normal language because we usually would refer to a specific bill. Well, the Capcom bill has not yet been numbered, so this bill will be numbered before it. So we had to be more generic in our statement. That's the.
And Mr. Chairman, just note that in the Capcom bill, we had reduced that to 15 million. We may at some point want to conform this bill to reflect the same amount.
So Don, back up, page 38, line 13. I see one number under other funds, SR.
Mr. Chairman, it's footnote 13 on page 38, right on line number 1.
Gotcha.
And then you go to page 45, lines 19 and 20 are the substantive change.
So I do think,
Trying to
that
find-
number should now be 15 million.
And Mr. Chairman, you certainly could do that. The question is, at the end of the biennium, the Department of Health will probably have at least this amount in reversions. Where do you want that to go? Do you want it to go to that newly created account? It's not appropriated, meaning they can't spend it. Or do you want that to go to the budget reserve? So that's the choice on that. And
Keep it here.
But Mr. Chairman, I thought, or excuse me, I thought we move that down from 39 to 15
In the budget, in the Capcom.
in Capcom.
So I think you're right, Dawn, leaving it here.
This just captures it for the, because remember that the estimated cost of this over time is going to be around 30 or 40 million.
So this is an authorization rather than an appropriation.
Basically, it's a capture.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Nicholas's characterization, it's a capture. It is not an appropriation. They cannot spend this money. And if the Capcom bill fails, nothing would happen. This money just sits in an account and is prepared,
So with that,
available for future expenditure.
just,
Okay, and
we
then
leave
Don-
this number as is
It
then.
requires further. expenditures.
And then Don on page 30, I'm trying to find footnote 13.
That's on page 45.
No, the reference, in section 48. Oh, way up there. Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Thanks, Don. Proceed.
Thanks, Dawn.
Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change appears on page 38 of the bill, line number 4 and 5. Line 38 of the bill, lines 4 and 5. You added $150,000 for insurance for the volunteer medical providers. And that,
By the way, this is an informal proceeding. Anytime you have any question, just jump in, not to raise your hand.
Right.
Make sure you're comfortable, particularly if it's your agency, so. if you're comfortable with-
Mr. Chairman, something the matter with my bill. Page 38 doesn't have anything like that on it. Line 4 and 5. Maybe mine's an old bill or something.
Mr. Chairman, if I could walk through after the words director's office.
0.5. You've got draft 0.5. and you
What draft we on?
1.1.
Received an updated bill yesterday.
Oh,
We'll get you an update.
Yeah,
oh,
you can jettison that one.
okay. There was something the matter with it. It wasn't just me.
So
Wonderful.
it's always reassuring to find that out.
Yeah, it is.
Take it up.
Oh, why do I have to?
We got it yesterday.
Yeah. It was,
We're just sitting on it. Easy to lose. It was my desk.
okay, so back up again, Don. It
Oh,
was,
that's
it
a
was,
lot better.
it was page 30, it was page 38
That's a lot better.
lines, page 38 lines 4 and
4 and
5.
5.
Correct. That includes $150,000 increase for purposes of volunteer healthcare professional reimbursement for liability insurance. And you will see after the words Director's Office, there is a footnote 14. That footnote 14 appears on page 46 of the bill, lines 1 through 5. And there's a description of the $150,000 and the purposes for which those funds may be expended.
And this bill is cumulative. It includes all the changes we did before. You're just highlighting the ones we did at the round robin.
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change occurring at the round robin appears on page 38, lines 7 and 8, with the addition of footnote number 15. I believe this was the Larson amendment, added $6.3 million in the general fund column, $6.3 million in the federal funds column, and that refers to the comprehensive waiver. The language associated with that new addition appears on page 46 of the bill, lines 13 through 17, and you can see, lines 19 through 24, and you can see the increase of 6.3 million general funds, 6.3 million federal funds, and the purposes for which those funds can be expended. The committee also modified footnote 15, and that modification appears on page 47, subsections D, lines 2 through 11. And I think this was the Walters amendment on the House side. And he specified that the wait list and the increase for services to the developmental disability providers are biennialized, and that is illustrated in lines 5 through 8, or Romanet I, and that the increase for the comprehensive waiver of
You lost me. Which page, Don?
Page 47.
47.
Page 47, subsection D specifies of your increases, which are doubled and which are sustained. And Romanet I indicates that A and C, which appear on page 46, subsection A and subsection C, those are both doubled, meaning they're biennialized.
So let's jump over to SR, the appropriate department. I believe that's on page 9.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
And that would, footnote 15 would be found on here in 8, 9, and 10.
Perfect.
So, so the numbers showing in the spreadsheet above are going to be lower than the numbers showing in 8, 9, and 10.
They will include in modifications.
Right. I don't think I followed the question.
So on 8, it says we added 15 million. Never mind. I got you.
And
So by the way, I mean, if we're losing.
No, I got it.
I'm talking to
Jim, it's his agency.
Yeah.
to everyone. All we're doing now is what we did in round robin. So before we present this, you and us will spend hours with Don walking through all of the changes, page by page. And that's what our Sunday work session is prior to presentation on the floor. So that, you know, we're jumping around now, and it's kind of hard to follow. But we'll go back and do all of this slower and more meticulously. Now we're just going through our changes to that. I know this is hard to follow. I mean,
It's a lot easier with the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I find it helpful when Don tells us the page number that we're on. I find it easier to follow.
Come on, can't be too easy.
Okay, Don. Yes. Senate Representative Larson. Oh,
Mr. Chairman,
No, his question was, how do you follow the money? Well, the differences and changes in footnotes 8 through 10 on the summary sheet, page 9. And can you go up to the
yes, Mr. Chairman. So you will see in the middle of the page, I'm speaking on the summary sheet, page 9. I think one of the important takeaways there is JAC added $19.3 million of general fund to the Department of Health and almost $17 million in federal funds to the Department of Health.
So where's the 19? Is that in the
That's the-
middle? It says 16. I don't see 19. Oh, you're at the bottom.
At the bottom, in total.
Okay, I'm adding.
So that's 13.34.
8, 9, and 10,
Million, right?
general fund, 15, 6.
That's under general fund, middle of the column. Under totals, right?
15.
This yellow bar.
So you've got 9, 16, almost 17. You add the 3 general fund appropriations, that gives you your total.
That's the true cost, not what we were talking about in committee, because it was a substantially lower number than that. Talked about in committee, this is the true cost biannualized.
Mr. Chairman, this is not biennialized. This is the amount appropriated for this biennium, the 23-24 biennium.
Okay, the biannualized number would be what in aggregate?
The biennialized number would be 16.9, and I'm getting that on the general fund, second number in the middle row, 16,975,814. But of that, 7.5 and 6.3 million are biennialized. So you need to add those amounts to that, which is a total of $14 million on top of, I'm going to round to 17. 17 and 14 gives me $31 million would be the true ongoing cost to the general fund for those 3 amendments that the JAC added. You don't experience that because the second year of this biennium is the only thing you're funding.
Mr. Chairman, it'd be helpful if for Jim and me, if somewhere that that's in that footnote on SR, that we understand that.
We could probably give you the sheet with all of the changes and with a biennialized column.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
And then you could say, hey, where are the big numbers being doubled?
So, and Elizabeth was able to update that sheet that way with the biannualized number. Okay, all right. Senator Salazar.
Mr. Chairman, so Don, how do you know that the 7.5 and the 6.3, how do you know that's biennialized? Does it say that?
Excellent. And so this is explained on page 47 of the bill. And it says on line 5, the appropriation subject to subsections A and C shall be doubled.
So I'm looking, Mr. Chairman. So
Please, Senator
so I
Salazar.
need to look at page 45, and then I also need to go to page 9 to get the biennialized number.
Page 47.
I just walked through it again.
Okay, so going back to
So Don, if I may, it's because we're supplementing in the middle of a biennium. So it's less than what a full biennium would be.
correct,
Right.
correct.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
what I do on that because the summary sheet is just really to be a brief summary. So as you're preparing for that, your presentation, you'll want to go and really look at that footnote, and the footnote will identify whether that it's one time, ongoing, or biennialized. And if it's biennialized, you would take that number, of course, and double it and say in the next biennium, it would reflect a different amount. But the footnote will tell you particularly in the Department of Health, Department of Family Services, where you have all these federal funds and these others that come into play there. Close attention to the footnote will tell you the disposition of those funds moving forward.
And the Department of Health is one of the most complicated ones to do this, but once you go back to the footnote beginning on page 38 and walk in then to how we get there.
Excellent, Mr. Chairman, page 38. you'll see on line 7 and 8, the general fund amount increased by approximately 17 million. If you do the actual math, it works out to 16,975,000. There are 3 components to that change. In the regular December hearing, the JAC added $1.6 million for a provider reimbursement, which replaced their reductions from 2 years ago. 2.5%, yes. In addition, you provided 3.75 million for the wait list. And then finally, you in round robin, which is just what I'm kind of discussing this go around, you added yes, I mixed that up. You added 6.3 million general funds for additional rebasement for those developmental disabilities providers. So if you add all of those numbers up, 3.6, 7.5, and 6.3, you get to the $17 million. That is the difference between 572 million and 547 million. And what explains those differences? Well, footnote 15 gives an explanation of those differences, and footnote 15 in the bill appears on page 46 and 47. And you can see the reiteration of those 3 components, the $7.5 million for the wait list, the $3.2 million for the comprehensive waiver, and the $6.3 million for the rate rebasement. And then on page 47, in subsection D, we provide direction to the governor's office as to which are sustained, which of those 3 appropriations are sustained at the same level next biennium when they're developing their budget, and which of them are biennialized, meaning you're appropriating 1 year in this biennium
You say it exactly that way, nobody will ask you any
Question, yeah.
But so wait a minute, but you'll have one of the fiscal staff in the back of the room
It's good.
available.
Yeah.
And you will see us looking
who took the real brunt of that were our service providers, people providing services to, for example, disabled adults, right? And so those service providers are saying, hey, you've really cut us, and we're either going to, not do it at all or provide it to fewer people. And so I think this is my understanding, big pictures, this is an attempt to kind of replace a little bit of that so we can take care of our disabled adults, for example. That's from the big picture, even though the numbers get really wonky and hard to understand from my point of view.
Yeah, it's restoration of step two.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, it's also important on that agency to understand that 90% of their budget goes out to services of the people. So
Okay,
So we
Don?
talk, that's the thing, we talk about that both in my introduction on major changes, and then when Lloyd gets up and starts going through the Department of Health, he does it like another introduction, a little more specific, just to lay the background so people know why we're doing what we're doing and that we're not being spendthrifts, basically. Okay.
At least not on that one.
True.
Mr. Chairman, the next change was the addition of the Department of Family Services. So the governor's recommendation,
Page
page 49 of the bill, page 10 of the summary report. The DFS, Department of Family Services, had no supplemental budget requests. They wouldn't even be in the bill had it not been for the round robin. In the round robin, the JAC added 3 components, and they appear on page 49, line 7 of the bill, and you will see new footnotes 5, 6, and 7. And they also appear on notes 1, 2, and 3 of the summary report. The first change is you added $2 million of general fund, $650,000 of federal funds. And this arguably was a restoration of step 2 reductions for RTF and PRTF. That's residential treatment facilities and psychiatric residential treatment facilities. That's a restoration of cuts. The second addition that you made added $2 million for tribal child protective services, and that appears in footnote number 6. The amount was $2 million. The funding for that came from prior appropriation to the St. Stephen's School. So you took money from the Department of Education and applied it to the Department of Family Services. The third action the agents or the committee took was you added $1,050,000. I think the language of the motion was any remaining amount from the St. Stephen's appropriation. And this has a bit of a complicated footnote. So to the sponsor, Representative Larson, you added a footnote number 7, which appears on page 52 of the bill, provides that these services should be effectuated through contracts with either the Eastern Shoshone tribe, the Northern Arapaho tribe, or both. And you set aside $500,000 of that $1,050,000 and that's only available. So 3 changes to the Department of Family Services. The total, if you're wondering, what did we do in total, that appears in the summary report fund, $657,000 federal funds. That's the net effect.
And Don, I want to correct.
Senate Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I believe that we want to do on that $1,050,000 is put that in that agent in that unit 59, whatever it was. And of that amount, have 500,000 available to the Eastern Shoshone Northern Arapaho tribe.
Mr. Chairman.
Is 5915 the tribes?
Correct, 5916.
$59.16.
Right.
And that because the intent of that, remember that appropriation we put in there a couple of years ago, and I want to say it was in 5915.
We'll look that up.
Yeah, and then for high behavioral needs, if they have to be placed out of the state. And then of that total amount, we would earmark 500 available to do the same for those two tribal Department of Family Services. So I'll get with you on that.
That makes sense.
I'm not following.
No, Mr. Chairman, this is important. So if we miss the footnote, we need to fix it, and we need to fix it today.
Yes, I just need to. Carry on and we'll get that. Can we come back to it and I'll get that?
Yep.
So
Mr.
Don,
Chairman? Oh.
Senator Anderson.
On that footnote number 7, it's only expenditure if matched in ratio 1-to-1. Where are the tribes going to come up with that money? Is that federal funds that they would use for that?
Don.
Mr. Chairman, that is my understanding. They receive federal funds for similar purposes.
Okay, Don, I remember a discussion about a situation with the two tribes in St. Stephen's School. I thought we just moved a bunch of federal funds back and forth. I don't remember an additional $5 million general fund. Am I mixing up some other discussion we had?
Mr. Chairman, there is no federal funds through the state associated with the St. Stephen's School. It's entirely generally funded.
Okay, was there some other discussion where we moved a large number of dollars of federal funds from one agency to another because of something happening on the two reservations?
Not to my knowledge. I think
Okay,
it's,
I'm misremembering it then. So this is new money.
Mr. Chairman, it is money that was previously appropriated to St. Stephen's and now is going to DFS. The St. Stephen's School went through some management challenges this summer, I think is a fair characterization. And now there is some question as to whether or not general funds can be sent to the Bureau of Indian Affairs entity that is responsible for administering that school. As a result, there has been no payment of state funds this biennium from the $3 million appropriated to the Department of Education. So it all sits there unexpended. And I believe the intent, and we may have the units incorrect, but the intent of the motion was to take that same amount of money, no new dollars, and shift it for other purposes within the tribal services.
So from St. Stephen's to DFS or to DOE?
DFS.
And yet it's showing 5 million new on page 10.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct, because those are new dollars to DFL funds in the Department of Education. Now, granted, the 3 million does not match the 5 million. I get that because you added an additional 2 million on top, which had nothing to do with the transfer. That was just a restoration of cuts.
Correct. And Mr. Chairman,
Please.
Don, so you're correct. You're correct on the first that the 2 million went to unit 5916. Of the $1,050,000, that should go to unit 5915, of which 500 is available to the tribes on the 1-to-1 match for placement of adolescents with high behavioral needs.
We can make that change, and I think it's a technical correction on page 52, line 15. You're requesting a change to go to 5915 rather than 5916.
That's correct.
Which line?
15,
Yes.
Okay.
see that unit 5916 should be 5915.
Correct.
And just for clarification, that unit is not limited to tribes. That is all local services statewide, but this footnote is limited to tribes.
Correct.
And Ms. Representative Senator Salazar.
So I'm trying to catch up, Don. How much is new money then? Was it 2 million?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. $2,045,382 general
You're
funds.
looking at where on page what?
Page 51. Footnote 5. Footnote 5 has nothing to do with the St. Stephen's transfer. This is new money.
Probably time to clean it up anyway.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change is an easier one.
Really?
Maybe.
I hope so.
Page 50 summary report. The only change during round robin is you removed the footnote associated with the MRG program. You had a
And Don, it's not showing here as a strikeout because it was not in the original biennial budget.
correct. Mr. Chairman, the next change appears on page 66. This did not occur during the round robin. Rather, it occurred during the legal review. So at the end of our drafting process, we have to send it through the head attorney, the director, and they took some issue with the way I had drafted footnote number 12, which was the Representative Walters amendment related to the BSL-3 lab. The only change is it is now candled into 4 subsections. The substance of the amendment is still the same, but I wanted to bring that.
So now we're
to
on
your attention.
page 15. Of the SR,
well,
12, excuse me, page 12, the SR. 5. The 3 biosafety BSL-3 staff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So you did it in much fewer words, but the lawyers wanted.
It's structured differently.
Okay.
Page 73 is the next substantive change. And there are 2 items here that occurred during round robin. In the Wyoming Business Council, page 73 of your budget and page 14 of your summary report. In the Community Facilities Program, I believe Representative Sherwood added $5 million with her motion. And that appears on page 73, line 14. And there was also a motion to remove a portion of the footnote on page 74, lines 14 through 21, which provided for a more narrow distribution of those funds. Now, the full $7.5 million is eligible in the entire Wyoming Community Facilities Program, for which there is a statute. Previously, your previous motion was limited to the renovation of school facilities for community facilities, and that program is broader than just that purpose.
So remind me, it was 2 million, it was bumped, it was 5.
Mr. Chairman, it was
million bumped by 5.
Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change appears on page 75 of the bill, page 15 of the summary report. I believe this was a Representative Walters amendment. He did not care for my language either. And he got rid of the candling on the coal marketing, and I'm being a little facetious here. Page work. As a result of that amendment, he was also able to remove all of the subsections and make this much tighter.
What was in the balance of the subsection?
Mr. Chairman, previously, the appropriation was for a program in the governor's office specifically related to only coal marketing. So we brought in much of that amendment was not for that program. This is more general. It can be used for arguably trona or other mineral interests. Mr. Chairman, the next.
You know, what I remember is we voted to substitute the word coal for the word mineral. I don't recall any other work on the footnote.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can read the language that was removed. Mr. Chairman, the language that was removed indicated that the appropriation shall be expended only for projects with a public benefit associated with expanding and protecting Wyoming's coal markets and coal facilities, projects with a public benefit that address impacts that cities, towns, and counties have experienced or will projects under this footnote without the written opinion of the Attorney General certifying the legality of the transaction and all documents therewith.
Oh, it's good to lose that language. Thank you.
Oh, it's a complete rewrite of that paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just broadens it.
So the question is whether that's
The substantive change appears on page 76 of the bill, page 15 of your summary report. The motion that was adopted in round robin added $877,000 that appears on line 14 and 15, branch-wide resources, and it is associated with footnote number 5. Footnote number 5 is a fairly extensive footnote in the summary or in the budget bill on page 78 and 79. And this relates to Wyoming statute 51110B, which provides for a mechanism within the budget to modify the salaries of judges commensurate with inflation experienced by other state employees. However, in doing so, the statute requires to indicate the percentage and the new salary amount, which you will see for the 7% increase for the Supreme Court justices and district court judges, and a 6% increase for the circuit court judges.
So just tell us the numbers, John, just so everyone understands.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the bottom of page 78, the Supreme Court Justice new salary will be $187,250.
From, what was it?
It was $175,000,
So $12,000 there.
correct, 7%.
that's district court,
That
Oh,
is Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the new salary for district court is $171.2 thousand.
From 165, 160.
165, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not sure that makes sense.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, it was 170 or 160.
160.
And then the circuit courts increased by 6% to $153,700. And I believe their salary was 145. So $8,700 increase.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the next substantive change is not a change, and it does require your motion. It was not raised in round robin. It is a technical point. It was in my email that I sent out on Tuesday afternoon. This is page 81 and 82 of the bill. You'll see section 205 on 81, and replicated, you will see section 205 on 82. We didn't want to change anything. We wanted to give you two options. I failed to bring up the fact that the changes to the natural gas price in the January Craig report modify the recapture and entitlement districts. As a result, the governor's ECA request and your ECA request gets modified by $200,000. So on page 81, line 4, you will see the current number in the bill is $1,768,641,000. On the next page, you will see we have increased that to $841,000, a $200,000 increase. The second page reflects the changes to January Craig. You have not voted on that. If you choose not to, we will use the original. If you choose to, this is not a request for new ECA. This is a change of the entitlement versus recapture district.
So go back again on the original 181, or the original page 81 is line 3, footnote 2. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, and that was 1.7. The revised on page 82, line 3, 1.7, $200,000 difference.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Please.
I move that the committee adopt the updated numbers that appear on page 82.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I was going to wait for discussion, but it's all right.
Mr. Chairman, the next change appears on page 84 of the bill, page 17 of the summary report. I'll draw your attention to lines 14 and 15. The committee reduced this is $50,000 of general fund that also appears in note 2 on the summary report and footnote number 6 on page 88. Footnote number 6 indicates that you're not funding the St. Stephen's, which is not a requirement, but statute does require the Department of Education to submit a request each year or each biennium. So we're specifying that it is the intent of the legislature that that budget request be included as an exception budget. Mr. Chairman, on the bottom of page 89, I won't bore you with all of the details, but because you rewrote number of section 300s, the intro had to be changed. It's all conforming language, no substance. The next substantive change appears on page 90, lines 13 through 17. In order to effectuate your $55 million increase in the school capital construction appropriation, you directed staff to take that out of the school foundation program reserve account, and that transfer is the amount needed to fully fund your $55 million increase. Increase the transfers to the reserve account. Common School Permanent Land Fund Reserve Account. Let's jump to R first, and this is the capturing of FMRs, which was directed by the committee. Subsection R grabs FMRs because you wanted to reduce the balance of the SFP and increase the balance of the Common School Permanent Land Fund Reserve Account. but there were insufficient FMRs and you said take the maximum available. So the balance comes in subsection Q from the LSRA. So Q and R are combined to effectuate the transfer to the Common School Permanent Land Fund Reserve account. Mr. Chairman, lines 9 through 11. There's a modification of the updated amounts for the Hathaway Student Scholarship Reserve account.
So Don, take us from Q and R to the summary sheet.
Mr. Chairman, on the summary sheet, these appear on page 19. And these are individually discussed, I believe. And so there's not note numbers. You can see 300 QRS, and you can see a description of the intent there.
The numbers the governor asked to go to the permanent funds, or the numbers that he asked for to go to the permanent funds different from what we're going to the reserves?
Mr. Chairman, they are different.
How different?
Mr. Chairman, I believe he requested $412 million to the PMTF and $248 million to the common school for a total of just under 700 million. And this change is more. I think you are adopting a total of $814 million. So I don't know the exact math, but about $100 million more into a different kind of savings. So the governor's rec was in permanent savings. This is in reserve account savings.
Okay,
So this, when we
please.
knew January, Craig, it went up about 60 or 70 million on each side.
Mr. Chairman, yes. In fact, a little bit more than that. The total was 175.
Do these transfers into the respective reserve accounts, then are there balances expected to be 5 times the spending policy amount for each of those respective accounts, or is it some other multiple?
Mr. Chairman, these are based upon our estimated balance on June 30, 2023, and they are expected to be five times.
5 times.
So because it makes it a bigger number, do we really need to increase it? Because it's all a point in time in essence. And when you increase it by 175 million, it just makes it a tougher pill to swallow and to explain. And leaves less monies available for other things.
Governor's number.
No, they were never the same.
Okay,
It was always.
you reduce. You'll reduce the bump up based on this.
Those original numbers were 380, I think, and then just tell us what those numbers were.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the original numbers totaled 639. $9 million, and the new numbers total.
We can fill up the remaining part of the 5% as we move forward. So, and we may not need to. It just depends on what Craig will become again. So, at any rate, just conversation. Mr. Chairman, that's entirely a policy choice, but let me just, there will either be losses or gains in the next 6 months, and that will also impact the ending balance. So to reiterate Chairman Nicholas's point, it's picking a point in time, and it's where you pick that point.
Next,
Mr. Chairman, just so there's no surprises, there was one oddity here, and that appears in subsection S, the Hathaway Student Scholarship Reserve account. you actually are reducing the amount needed to be deposited in there.
Page again.
Page 91, lines 9 through 11. 91 lines 9 through 11. The original bill had 4.6 million. This is now a reduction to 4 million, a savings of 600,000.
And the reason for that is that oddity.
Mr. Chairman, the oddity was the original number was based on the cap fin work, which was a actual June 30, 2022 balance.
Okay,
And now you're moving to an estimated June 30, 2023 balance. And the balance is higher. Mr. Chairman, next issue is on page 92, line 11 through 12, subsection AA. You make this contingent upon the total return bill sponsored by the Cap Fin Committee, House Bill 89. Next item is the next subsection, B, which provides the state auditor to transfer $1.5 million from the general fund to the Capital Square Preservation Account. This is the first piece of that wayfinding appropriation. First, we'll put it into the account and then we'll appropriate it for the purposes that you specified, acoustics being the priority.
okay, next.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is on page 95. This one is also very important. Section 310 was now brought into the bill. It did not appear. This was as a result of the governor's office submission on employee compensation, and it provides relief up to $8 million for fiscal year 2024 that they can exceed or essentially use vacancy savings for their compensation plan. Just so all the cards are on the table, that $8 million will biennialize to 16. Mr. Chairman, the next substantive item up here.
So it's a max of 8, parentheses 16, that they can take out of this appropriation and use it on occupied positions.
Out of their reversions.
Mr. Chairman, out of the vacancy savings or reversions, correct. Mr. Chairman, the next revision is on page 97, section 313. This relates to school facilities.
And we're on page 20 of the.
Page 20, yes, of the
Page-
summary.
Page which on the budget bill?
Page 97 of the budget, page 20 of the summary report.
Okay, let me get there.
In specifically, this is line
Oh, this is all yellow, isn't it? Okay.
lines 13 through 27 on page 97 and 1 and 2 on page 98. This is to effectuate your motion on the school capital construction, $55 million. Put into a evaluation and prioritization schedules of the state building condition and capacity review. No individual districts are mentioned in this.
Just 1 second while we read through it.
Mr. Chairman,
So give us a second to read through it. Actually, just walk us through it.
sure, Mr. Chairman, the 55 $5 million is not subject to any specific and the capacity needs reviews. They also must are conditioned upon a needs assessment as certified in writing by the chairman of the School Facilities Commission to the governor. The last sentence there, I believe, was the Kinski addition, and it indicated that prior to the expenditure of this $55 million, the state construction department shall either conduct planning and design. And planning and design is the school's term for level 1, level 2. They don't use that in their statutes for each approved project or review of the school district's planning and design. So they have the two options. But the state construction department has the obligation.
30-second timeout or a 60-second timeout?
I'd say let's take a restroom break,
Yeah, okay.
about 10 minutes. Be back here at
9:40.
9.
Oh, ready?
Mr. Chair.
We back? We're back in session. Where did we leave off? We left off on page 98, I believe.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, go back to let's see. Yeah. Section 313. Bottom of page 95. Bottom of page 95, section 313. I'd like to open that, make a motion at this time to open section 313.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's opened.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to offer an amendment to replace the language that's currently in section 313. I have copies at the desk and I think I've distributed them out to everybody on the committee. Anyone else wants one? Don, do you have it? Basically, it walks through on lines 89. On page 89, lines 13 through 17, just as auditor shall transfer $86,419,400 from the school foundation program reserve account to the school capital construction account. Page 96, lines 13 through 27, delete entirely. Page 97, lines 1 through 3, delete entirely and insert a new section 9 for other school building and facility projects, $100 million specified as follows. A, for design and construction of a grade 5-6 elementary school in Laramie County School District 1, not to exceed $33 million. B, for design and construction and renovation of an addition to the high school in Teton County School District number 1, not to exceed $22 million. C, for projects based on annual evaluation prioritization schedules for school building conditions pursuant to Wyoming statutes 2715, 117, A and I, capacity needs pursuant to WS 21-15-117, A through III, taking into consideration school building and facility condition and capacity needs completed in 2023, not to exceed $45 million. And then section 15, expenditures from this appropriations under paragraph 14 of this subsection are conditioned upon the completion of the school building and facility condition and needs assessment under Wyoming statute 2115, 117A in 2023, as certified in writing by the chairman of the School Facilities Commission to the governor. For each project funded under paragraph 14 of this subsection, the project shall be contained within a school district building and facility plan developed in accordance with Wyoming statute 21-15-116, and the School Facility Commission shall determine and adopt the most cost-effective method for remediation of school building and facility needs in accordance with Wyoming statute 21-15-117. Prior to expenditure of funds for the construction from the appropriation of this paragraph 14 of this subsection, the state construction department shall either conduct the planning and design for each of the approved project or review and approve the planning and design for each approved project. If there's a second, I'll explain. First, Mr. Chairman, and I know we're short on time, so I'll make this quick, but it's important. I owe this group an apology. When we voted on the last to adopt this budget, I was under an impression that the former language that I'm attempting to replace was the only language available to me, as far as the only one that would be supported. I found out that that was not quite the case. And so, and after a consultation with members and some of the district folks, this language has come forward.
the two biggest complaints I heard when we were talking about this whole school section was that two districts jumped the line and did not go through the proper process. Now, that's an arguable point that I know each district has. But that are the facts that we had at that time. What this attempts to do, oh, in addition that they were not only not following the process, that they were jumping some sort of line of facility projects that have been approved. What this attempts to do, what this motion attempts to do is to say, okay, those two school districts have to go back to the commission and go through and get approval from the commission for their projects. Up or down, stand or fall, based on the merits of those proposals as they lay them out. And whatever criteria the commission lays out for them. Two, the other 45 million is to, if there are any questions about skipping some sort of line, since we really haven't had a fresh facilities assessment in a while, that 45 million is to allay that fear that those school districts, if approved, would be jumping any line at all. They still, like I say, will have to go through a process. They still have to be approved by commission. If they do, then these funds would be released. That is the motion. I'd be glad to stand for any questions. And again, my sincere apologies.
So, Mr. Co-Chair, this is still $70 million less than what the governor requested in his budget, correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Question.
Oh, God.
Question.
Mr. Chairman,
What did I say?
I think there is an error on page 96, lines 13 through 27. It should be page 98, or excuse me, page 97, lines 13 through 27.
So you were the error in this. document.
Correct.
You're looking at the amendment.
Just conform the document.
Thank
But just for yucks, where in this amendment were you looking at? Oh, the deletions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 97.
Question. All those in favor, signify by saying, oops. Well, no, it's an amendment on the budget markup.
Yeah.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. Motion carries. Next.
Mr. Co-Chair, I do have a motion.
Okay.
And Don, take me to the 5% or the 5 times X on page and
The 630.
Mr.
Page
Chair.
91.
page 90. And my motion is to amend the dollar figures that we added in from the January Craig and go back to the original numbers that were the October Craig, which is in essence drops the total amount going to the reserve accounts by roughly 170 million.
So it's the October 22, Craig. I thought you wanted to go back to actual. No?
Well, it's that was actual at the time of October Craig.
Okay, Craig, October 22. Second. Discussion.
Understand the motion, Don, and we will leave in the language for FMRs. In other words, on the school side, it comes from school funds as much as are available. So we don't impact as little as possible the taking it from the LSR. In other words, we're having the excess in school revenues.
Right. You'll still have to hit the LSRA though, won't you, Don?
Mr. Chairman, you will.
eliminate it,
That's
yeah.
correct. Yep.
Discussion.
Mr.
Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, just to understand, essentially, we're going to reduce those numbers to what would have been appropriate if the October Craig had remained
Correct.
static.
And knowing that when we have capital gains at the end of June 30, we're likely to have, I mean, there will be capital gains, but they've already told us that they're there unless we have a recession between them.
And it's all a best guess anyway, because it's based on estimates in the Craig.
Sure. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Further
That-
discussion, further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next.
Oh, we have
Mr. Chairman, the next revision appears on page 100. In the round robin, you directed that all proposed expenditures from section 321, 325, and 327. These are the $75 million for energy matching, the $150 million for energy matching, the $75 million for federal infrastructure grants, and the $160 million governor's contingency all have new language. That first appearance of that new language is on page 100, lines 6 through 10, which requires governor to report the goals and expenditures to management council and the legislature 30 days prior.
Okay, that looks good.
Mr. Chairman, on page 101, I believe this was the Walters Amendment, a designation of $5 million of the $75 million federal infrastructure grants designated for a airport tower at an international airport in Wyoming. This is a 4-to-1 match from any other funding source. The same reporting requirement appears on subsection D, page 101, lines 14 through 18, the 30-day notice, management council and JAC.
Okay,
Finally, Mr. Chairman, page 102, you have the notice the third time, and you added subsection C on lines 14, page 102, and indicated that this only is effective if the federal encumbrance legislation is also enacted, that $160 million Senate File 118.
and the preceding language allocates to the governor for his big projects fund.
That's correct.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, page 103 and 104 and 105 is the revisions to employee compensation. Two issues there, or items to bring to your attention. First of all, we changed the numbers consistent with the governor's letter to $48.85 million and made the distributions between the executive branch, judicial branch, and the higher education institutions. Secondly, you will see a change in the language where we refer to employees and vacant positions throughout this language. That's really the only change. There has been some comment, so I want to bring this to your attention on page 105, subsection D, lines 13 through 17, page 105, subsection D. Notwithstanding any other law, the appropriation shall not be transferred or expended for any other purpose. This does need to remain. This is not the flexibility for the vacancy. That is the section 310 language. This says of the 48 million, you can't use that for out-of-state travel or construction and that sort of thing.
Don, out of curiosity, why is the language of 310 not in 329?
Mr. Chairman, the 310 language applies to all compensation, last year's increases, this year's
Okay.
increases, and
Gotcha.
the base pay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the last change in round robin occurred in section 332, which appears on page 106 and 107 of the bill. This is the Capitol Square improvements. The $1.5 million appropriation in priority order. Romanet I indicates the improvement of building acoustics. Romanet II is an art exhibit display area, broadcast studio, and custodial break room. And then there is a designation that any remaining funds can be used to supplement previous appropriations for purposes of accounting for inflation.
Okay. Anything else from the committee?
To the what?
Mr. Chairman, this does require a roll call vote.
No, it is.
Mr. Co-Chair, Vice Chair, anything else before we take the roll call?
I don't believe so.
Call the roll.
I was gonna wait.
Mr. Chairman, this
Oh, wait a
requires,
minute, wait a minute. Representative Larson? Oh, okay, don't wait a minute.
So.
We funded 5 million for, I can't remember the program, out of the governor's whip. Where's that at?
Mr. Chairman, that appears on page 5, line 13, footnote 11. And footnote 11 appears in the bill on the top of page 10, where you are designating $5 million of the 27.5 million WIP funding for the UW Advanced Research Computing Center.
Okay, so Mr. Co-Chair, I'd like to move that we reverse that withdrawal, that appropriation from the WIP. And I guess we'd take it out of what, general fund? General fund. I just need a second. We can talk about it. It's been moved and seconded. Do you want to visit about a little bit? On reflection, we're concerned that the 5 million may have impaired the governor's WIP initiative. While we had the best of intentions at the time, upon reflection, we realized we need to leave the WIP intact and we still want to fund this, which is very high priority, this computer system. We'll take it out of general funds.
And Mr. Chairman, the 5 million will now appear in 067.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion? Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Anything else before we call the roll? Call the roll.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanisar Dave.
Aye.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Nethercott. Senator Salazar. Co-Chairman Nicholas.
Aye.
Chairman Kinsky.
No.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is adopted.
Let's make this a joint House and Senate.
What number do you want to assign? All right, well, thank you all very much. We can get down to the floor just in time to be there in time. Roll call. Don.
Mr. Chairman, just a designation. You did have another bill on your agenda. Are you postponing that to a date certain?
1%, 0.5%. We don't have.
Yeah, it's going to take more than 10 minutes.
We'll just reschedule.
Did we notice it for today?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's postpone it till
That's why
our next, well, that'll be postponed till our next JAC